Welcome back for another episode of Cody Builds, and boy have I got myself into a situation here. I wanted to jump right into patching this lower quarter panel, and boy did I get into a mess. Let's take a look at just how bad this bedside is. So I came in here, tried to mark out where I'm gonna cut my panel. You can kind of see I've got it etched in here a little bit. And oh gosh, we knew we had bondo in here. It's bad, guys. It's real bad. I sanded and sanded and sanded and sanded. The issue that I ran into is it looks like at one point in time or another, there may have been a collision or a big dent on this side of the bed. There's a big dent here, and there's something going on all the way through here. And what the old body guy did that originally owned this truck is he just dented all this in and just slathered it full of bondo. He did the old cave and pave. And it is causing some major issues here for this patch job. The first thing I ran into is where I wanted to cut this bedside down. As I was just grinding away the bondo, it got to be at least a half an inch thick. So there was just a half an inch thick ledge of bondo right here where I had gotten down to bare metal. So I'm trying to feather that back and smooth all that out. And this whole bedside is just super wavy. So it's pretty obvious that either this thing took a big hit or in the process of repairing this bedside, the guy who did the original body work just knocked a bunch of dents in this thing so he could fill them up with bondo. So we're just getting it as good as we can get it. It's never going to be perfect, and this is exactly why we aren't super concerned about, you know, some of the exposed welds and things like that, because this bed is never going to be on a show truck. This thing's got so much rust in it. It's so bad. So we're just doing the best we can do. So you can see I've sanded this thing up. I've feathered up the bondo as best I can. We're going to get this all cleaned up, primed and repainted so that I can come back in, scribe my line where I'm going to cut, and re-weld in that patch so that we can get that kind of matching panel to look something like our wheel arch quarter panel patch here that we did with the burns in the paint and all that, as we've discussed in the past couple episodes. So that's what's in store for tonight's episode. I'm going to get this bondo dust cleaned up. We're going to get this thing primed and painted, and then hopefully maybe I can start getting this thing tacked in this evening. I'd really like to get this quarter panel patch done. I've been trying to do it for a couple episodes now. We just keep running into bigger and bigger problems. And tonight's just happens to be a matter of how I want to go about doing this with the paint. We literally don't have time to sit around and watch paint dry. That's enough yapping. I'm going to get to work. Let's get this thing cleaned up and get some primer and paint put on it. So I'm just going to let this dry up a little bit, and then we're going to shoot this with primer. I'm going to try and keep all of the fresh paint and primer kind of below from this level down. I don't care about this lower panel, obviously, because we're going to be cutting all this out. But we're just going to kind of feather in the primer and the paint here. And it's going to be what it's going to be. Eventually, I'll be able to wet sand everything, hopefully blend a little bit. And then I know I've said this on multiple episodes, but we will come back with the clear coat at the end of the project when I can do the cab, the front clip, and the bed all at the same time. So, man, I'm a little bummed that this is as full of bondo as it is. It does add a layer of complexity to the repair and then the paint for the style that we're going for here. And then also, you know, I tried to level this as best I could, and we've got little divots in the bedside here. I should probably get some bed filler and fill this in, honestly. But the thing I'm most concerned about at the moment to move forward is getting paint over the cut line where we're going to be welding that patch in. So maybe down the line, maybe I will come back and rework some of this upper stuff up here. Maybe not, I don't know. There's so much filler in here. They spread it so thick they got air bubbles in it, so there's little air bubbles here and there. And that's really, I should be coming back with filler and trying to fill those and smooth everything out. Bodywork's a waste of time on this thing. It's not worth the time or the effort. It's just too far gone. So I think we just stick with trying to make it look as good as we can for the minimal amount of effort. Sticking with the idea that this is Grandpa's old work truck, it's going to look like a beat up old work truck when it's done. So I got into a little bit too much of a rush here, and it's biting me in the butt. I'm gonna show you my mistake here. When I wiped down that Bondo with IPA, I should have gave it more time to let the solvent outgas off of the Bondo. I should have blown some compressed air over it or done something like that. If you get in here and look, you can see where the Bondo is starting to peel, orange peel and crinkle. And what that tells me is that there's still solvent, some of that residual solvent in the Bondo, and it's outgassing through the paint. It's cracking the paint up. So unfortunately, this was a situation where I rushed, trying to get a video out this week, and it's bit me in the butt. So I'm gonna have to come back eventually and resand this and repaint it, prep it appropriately and repaint it. But on the bright side, I mean, look how much better this looks already. Just throwing a skim coat of that patch paint in here now. It's not, you know, I just kind of feathered in here. It's not really blended in at the top yet. It's not sanded or anything like that. So just for a real quick spritz of paint, it actually looks pretty darn good. So unfortunately though, it does look like I'm gonna have to kind of repaint this section here. I'll have to sand this, repaint it. That's not gonna affect the weld line. It's a little bit above the weld line actually, so that's okay. So I'll probably proceed tonight with starting to weld that back in, this panel back in. I think what I decided is there's not much Bondo in this back cap, and there's not a ton of rust in it either. I did get a little carried away with the cutoff wheel and got around the corner here, but I think what I'm actually gonna do is come up the side, right on, just on this side of the corner, and keep all of this intact. The patch panel is so bad, it's so far off in the corner here that it's gonna be a nightmare to try and metalwork that and get it to fit. So rather than even battle any of that or this corner piece, I'm just going to come right down the side here and fit this panel in down the side. That'll make my life a lot easier. It'll look a lot better. So that's what we're gonna do there. So I'm gonna give this paint just a few more minutes to tack up a little bit. It's not gonna be perfectly dry, but again, we've already messed it up once, so we can't make it any worse. And I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna start fitting my panel and regrinding the weld line where that paint, we need to remove that paint. And what I'd like to have done is at least have this lower quarter panel tacked in this evening. Okay, paint's tacked up to a good level where I can at least work with it here. So I'm gonna throw this up there. And I'm gonna redraw my line here. Okay, and that's my line that I need to come back and clear the paint off of. And then I'm gonna have to do the same thing along this patch. We'll have to clear the paint off the top edge of that. Okay, since I decided I'm not gonna use the back side of this, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get in here and cut off this back side just to give me a little bit better access on the panel. So I'm just gonna do that real quick with the cutoff wheel here. All right, I left myself plenty of extra to work with there. I just wanted to get the bulk of what I needed cut off gone. Yeah, that's gonna work really good actually. I like this plan much better. All right, so what I'm going to do here is get this up into place where I want it. We're gonna clamp it in place, and I'm gonna start at the wheel arch edge and work our way over. And then when we get back to here to the back, I'll go ahead and I'll cut right through the panel and through what's on the bed. And we'll just cut that straight through. And that's gonna be our line where we end up welding. So I've got plenty to work with here. I'll actually be more over here on this side of the corner. I just left a little extra on there for now, so I've got plenty of overlap where I've got room to cut that off when the time comes. So I'm going to clamp down to the brace we put in earlier, okay? And then I'm gonna clamp up here. Okay, I got our panel clamped in nice and tight here where I want it. I'm gonna run my angle grinder over the top edge here and along this inside edge, and we'll get that fit all the way up through kind of the new panel here, and then we'll start working our way back. Okay, I'm gonna get this panel out of this little piece out of the way. think I'm gonna have to actually cut a good chunk of this back as well so I can work this panel back a little bit. Right now, this is hindering me from getting this lip edge where I want it. There's quite a bit more. So let me back up for a second. This is the patch panel I got from Auto Metal Direct. This is one of the patch panels I got from AMD. This is a terrible patch. This one's decent. This one sucks. There's a lot more roll in this panel than there is in the AMD panel. So you can see it's going to be a little bit challenging to line the body lines up here. They don't line up all that great. Part of what I'm going to have to do here probably is cut a good section of this back so I can start this panel where I need it, and then we can work from there. I can't get it quite where I need it without really heavily manipulating the panel. And I don't want the panel to be all bent out of shape before we even get started. So I'm gonna grab my marker again. I know I kind of need to be below the marker line, just below that marker line. Take this panel off once more. One of these days I'm gonna actually weld that panel in. Okay, that should help me get this lined up a little better here. Yeah, see, now I can get my front lip lined up first, and then we'll work this crappy panel back. Okay, so the first edge I'm gonna get lined up is this little lip detail here. So that's what I wanna get lined up first. So I'm gonna stick my clamp right into the corner there. Actually, I need to tighten up my clamp. I'm trying to get my clamp to straddle the lip on the bottom panel and the lip on the top panel. Actually, you know what? I'm going to grab a different clamp here. Got a better clamp for this. So this clamp has the kind of rounded over edges here, which is fine for pinching two pieces of metal together. This is a little bit better for this because I've got these flat pads here. So what that's going to allow me to do is clamp across the edges of both the wheel well patch and this lower quarter patch. And that should help get us our first corner lined up. Maybe. So that corner is lined up pretty nicely. I'm going to go ahead and tack. If I hold that like that, I like that lip edge, so I'm going to put a couple tacks in that lip edge. Okay, that's going to help me get this detail edge lined up here. Now let's step back and take a look here. I want to show you how the rest of this patch panel fits. It's awful. You can see I'm nice and flush through here on this panel, but then if you look, have you look up and under, this is sticking back. You can see how much gap, how far back this panel is sticking, because this has like a inset detail on it. So that swoops the panel kind of back behind where our weld line is going to be. And then if you come to the back, I mean, look how far off the corner is. It's extremely far off, which is why I'm just not even going to tackle that back edge piece. I am not impressed with the LMC panel. The AMD panels that I had all fit pretty well. I know in my AMD versus LMC video, I had some concerns about how the AMD patch panels were going to fit. They actually ended up fitting pretty darn nicely with very minimal work. This LMC panel is terrible. It's thin. This is that super thin panel, but it's the one that I have. So we're gonna make it work. It's gonna be better than what was there, which is all that rotten metal. And you can already see, you know, that already looks 1,000 times better than what we had before. But it could be much better. So at this point, I'm going to work my way down the edge of the bed here. We're gonna get everything fitting flush here and work our way towards the back side of the bed. Just tacking at this point. This has been one of the best purchases I've had for doing all these patch panels. This thing comes in so handy. working on these patch panels. It really helps me get things lined up nicely as we go along here. So what I've been doing on all my other panels is I've just been clamping this in as I go, and that helps bring the panels flush together as I work my way down the panel. And then I can make adjustments as I need to between the tacks if needed. Now that I have this trim back, I can see where this panel's falling on to the bed side, and I'm actually gonna cut probably another 1/4 to 1/2 inch back is where I'm gonna make my cut through the patch panel and into the side of the bed. That's gonna leave me the rounded over portion of the corner still intact, and then I'll be welding to the flat side of the bed. So I think I can go ahead and make that cut all the way down through this body line, and then we'll reassess for the second cut through this lower section of the body line. Okay. Okay, so now that I've got that cut, the scrap piece of metal that's going to come out of there is now loose. So I need to get that out of the way because I can actually see it's going to impede where our panel needs to go. So I'm going to see if I can't fish that out. Okay, there you go. See? So this is what was left of our panel. This is so heavy. There's so damn much bondo in this thing. It's ridiculous. All right. So now I should be able, yeah, look at that. It's just almost falling right into place there, which is good. So I can now kind of clean this corner up, and we're going to tack our way down to here. And then I'll reassess this second line. We'll get the second portion of this cut out, and then this thing will be fully tacked in. I got one last little gap to clean up down here, and it's just where the profile of the old panel and the new one don't quite match. So I've got it tacked here. I'm just gonna kind of hammer this new patch panel back into place, and we're gonna work it and see if I can get it to match up with this older piece of panel and take this gap out of here. Hopefully I can get that worked into place, and then we'll get it tacked. And then the last thing will be just welding everything up. Oh yeah, we got it knocked into place. Just that little bit of tapping, and then I'm manipulating this where I need it with my screwdriver, and I can actually get it moved right into place. So I'm actually going to run the cutoff wheel through the corner one last time. Yeah, we can get this pushed right into place. Actually, now I can use a clamp. Grab my clamp here. Oh, perfect. That just pulls it right into place where it needs to be. All right, I can get this tacked up. So I'm just using the light on my phone here and a 320 grit sandpaper, and I'm just lightly scuffing the areas, the kind of trouble spots. I'm not going too crazy here, not doing anything too nuts. Very lightly sanding right now. I'm not putting any terribly deep scratches in the paint here. We're just kind of trying to level off some of where that wrinkled paint came up. And one thing I'm doing when I use this sandpaper, I'm making sure that I've got the paper wrapped around my fingers this way, and I'm moving my fingers side to side. If I were to run my fingers back and forth like this, what happens is you actually put gouges into that paint because you're getting unequal pressure across your fingers as you work the paint. If you go side to side like this, you're spreading that pressure out over the vertical surface of your finger rather than along your finger this way. So you're less likely to get grooves in your bodywork or your paint when you're sanding. The other thing you can do is use a block, obviously, but we're just trying to use some really light pressure here. We're not really digging into this all that much. We're just trying to level off that paint where the solvent was flashing off on us. Okay, I actually feel pretty good about that. I think that's gonna work pretty well. I'm gonna clean this up and then we'll blast this with paint and we'll see how it looks. All right, check it out, guys. Look how much better this looks. Just remember what it looked like with all the rust and the peeling bondo and all that in this back corner. It looks so much better. I'm so happy with it. I can't even express how much better in person this looks without the rust and the wheel wells and all the crust that was in this bottom corner. It looked so bad, so bad. And I'm super happy with the paint match and all that. You know, we're putting a lot of work into this bed. And I've gotten a few questions as like, why don't you just go the extra step? And, you know, I have explained it in the comments a little bit, but I just want to reiterate, you know, it's all sentimental for me. This was my grandfather's work truck. It was never a nice truck. It'll never be a nice truck. It's got so many dents, dings, scratches in this thing. It would not be worth your time to try and even make this thing passable. That's not what this truck is. You know, you saw how much bondo's already in the side of this truck. It would take probably a year's worth of work to get the dents and the bondo out of this thing. I mean, ultimately, you'd want to strip this thing completely down to bare metal. You're probably putting new bedsides on it. At that point, it's not my grandfather's work truck anymore. You know, it's a restoration. It's something that it never was for him. And to me, that kind of kills the sentimental value of it. So I love it the way it is. I love the scratches. I love the dents. I love the look of the exposed welds. It's not going to be for everybody, I get that, but this one's for me. And that's all that matters. And that's ultimately what matters, is do you love your vehicle? Do you love the way it looks? Then nothing else matters. Don't let anyone tell you what you're doing is dumb or ugly or stupid. All that matters is if you like it. And if it means something to you, then that's great. I mean, that's what I love about this project, and I hope that I'm conveying that to you guys too, and you know, you kind of feel that too, because I'm sure you have projects that are ugly ducklings or, you know, just aren't that popular. You know, they're not that popular performance car, sports car. It really doesn't matter as long as you have a connection to your project. It keeps you motivated. You're putting in the work. You're learning new skills. You're improving your car. Whatever it is you're working on, your boat, your truck, your tractor, whatever it is, that's great. You know, you're saving something from the junkyard. You're making something better. You're making memories for yourself, or you're reliving memories that you had with your family members, your friends, or you know, whatever the story is. So that's what this channel is about. That's what this project is about. And I really hope that you guys see that and feel that. That said, if you don't work on your project, it will not work on itself. So get out in the garage, get building, and I'll see you on next week's episode of Cody Builds.